Hey, so I'm back, but this won't be in a connected story kind of way. I'm just going to be tackling a video that was requested of us by one of our patrons, nothing else. Hopefully I can still bring my normal sense of humor and style into this, though. Anyways, let's get into it. Although it's not really my wheelhouse, I did enjoy a good horror show or two when I was younger, so I'm not in foreign territory here. With warmer weather coming, unless you're not located near me and it's raining instead or something, let's go and camp out for a couple days. We can tell ghost stories, run from our inner demons, and cook some s'mores. Hope your bags are packed, because Chip the Blue Wolf has sent us on a little vacation. To Camp Nightmare. Haha, nailed it. And yeah, this is a review on the classic Goosebumps story, Welcome to Camp Nightmare. To avoid some possible issues, most, if not all, the footage will not be in color. Sorry if that detracts from the viewing experience, but I'd rather this video go up in the first place than have to battle copyright for a couple days. After the opening of Goosebumps, a classic, we are greeted with a rather creepy visual immediately as a school bus drives through the forest, and there's a break in perspective where we go from a rather clean shot of the bus to a much more unfocused perspective, like a stalker or creature of some kind is watching them and also maybe has bad eyesight or is moving at a rather fast speed that it just blurs everything. It stops at our summer camp location, Camp Night Moon. Or it would if the drop-off place wasn't in the middle of nowhere and the bus driver is being rather unhelpful as he carelessly removes all the luggage and gives no response to the children, either questioning him or offering help to take the belongings out. Then he just leaves without a word. This is the first minute, and we are already thrown into the horror. Rather quickly, a creature also lets out a roar after they descend into bickering, but then gets blown up by a flare gun. Their savior is a camp director who calls himself Uncle Al. The unfortunate name similarity to South Park's Big Gay Al aside, he leads the kids on a mile walk to the campground. On this walk, we get to meet what is most likely our main cast. Billy, the average kid with parents who are always on science trips, and Dawn, the girl. The girls and boys are then split up before led to their campgrounds, and are given some pretty standard rules, like don't sneak out at night, don't sneak off to the girl side, wake up at 6 in the morning, and then the stranger one of write home every day. Oh, and we also get to learn of the location called the Forbidden Bunk.
The Forbidden Bunk?
Why is it called the Forbidden Bunk?
Because it's forbidden. So stay clear.
Ah yes, the classic tactic of, because it just is. I'm sure a location with such a name will not play into the story whatsoever. We see the boys settle in, with Billy finding strange writing that leads to a little plot hole.
Hey, who's this Saber?
That was Saber.
Who's Saber?
Now, Saber is not a who, it's an it.
See, Saber has already been established, so this question doesn't really make much sense to me. If Uncle Al never mentioned its name and stuck to referring to it initially as just some wildlife, then the question would work. And the cool kid bringing up how it killed 2 kids previously would also be plenty scary, since, as of now, Saber's first introduction ended with it being scared off. It doesn't seem that threatening to deserve a name, though it being a beast of some kind is still plenty worrying, given our location. Mike, our resident fat kid, has gotten bit by a snake already, and Billy, with aid from the cool kid, throw it out with the bedsheets. Now, I kind of like this scene, because it establishes that not only will Billy be our main character, but he is also a leader type of character. Even when a snake that could be poisonous is around them, he stayed calm and took charge while everyone else was scared. We're then introduced to Larry, another camp counselor, who immediately questions him about the sheet being thrown out the window. He is a jerk, to put it bluntly. He shows more care for the perfectly good sheet, doesn't see the snake bite as something serious, and even shies away from seeing how bad it could be, and then thinks himself smarter than them, which is probably the one fair point I can give him, given he is a camp counselor, older, and has probably been doing this for a while, so he should have more experience. We then learn that there isn't a nurse here. Only them, so any injuries they have will mean that it's up to them to treat it. At a s'more session, we get some more Saber vision as Billy shows some compassion to Mike as he checks up on him and brings him some food. What I wonder is, why the heck is he sitting away from the rest of the camp? Does everyone just hate him for being bit? And apparently showing him some sort of friendship was bad, as Al comes by to question the motives. But then, at the very least, he takes the issue seriously, and then commends Billy's actions. On the way back to their bunk, Saber almost gets the boys. Then, morning comes, and Mike is missing. His entire bed has also been undone, and his possessions have been taken. When Billy goes out to find him, he gets jump-scared by some guy who tells him that they're late for breakfast and was sent by Larry. So, when going to the lodge, the boys ask Larry where Mike is, and he doesn't give them a straight answer, being rather unserious about the whole situation still, and he's not alone in that feeling apparently. Larry then decides to lead the guys in a game of morning baseball. At the game, though, Billy continues to ask around, this time from Uncle Al himself, and gets no answers, but instead a dismissal, as it seems he's more focused on creating a fun atmosphere and not to talk about serious stuff like a potentially lethal snakebite. During this little game, though, Larry gets a bit pissy for Al's call, so to get back at the kid that beat him, he chucks it and actually hits the kid in the back of the head.
He hit him right in the head.
Come on, man, the guy was running on the baseline.
Where else was he supposed to run? Back to second? Colin, the kid who got hit, is sent back to the lodge to help recover for a little bit from being hit in the back of the head until survival night happens, and he and Billy are partnered together. During the night, the other boys try to get Billy to go with them to the forbidden bunk, but he doesn't go with them. Instead, Billy is later awoken by a roar of some kind, and is met by a frantic bunkmate who says that Roger was gotten and apparently torn to pieces by Saber. Rather than flee, Billy goes back to get Colin, who is acting a bit creepier now, or maybe scared given the wound he got could be serious, and now he's aware that the mythical Saber, who gets scared off by a little explosion, is coming after them. Somehow, they make it back safely, and they decide to hide in their bunks, and that's where Part 1 ends. As of Part 1, it's doing its job. I'm not really sold on Saber just yet, but it's clear they're trying. Although I saw the explosion as it being a scaredy cat, it's also possible to interpret it as it being so strong that explosives can only scare it off. The shots of it stalking our campers at first was nice, but then it kinda lessens the fear factor, as apparently this terrifying beast can't even chase down two small children who are slowing themselves down by carrying a third person. Also, that Saber is hungry graffiti is really just a strange addition, because Colin really brings all the rumors and legends to this creature, and he does even better. The acting for the kids and adults is really good. I think all of them nail the roles, even if some don't get as much as others. To not spoil it, there's a reason the adults act like they do, and it makes for a good reading on a second watch when you are aware of the twist. As for the horror or scare aspect, it's alright. I can see Saber being scary to some, but the shot that usually gets me worried is when Larry, in slower motion, throws the ball at the back of Colin's head and his helmet comes off and he's just clean out for a good couple of seconds. Any pain is getting harder for me to watch, and that one just always gets me because it just seems so real. However, the other part factoring into the scare is Mike, and how the adults treated his injury. We see how serious it is when we are made aware it was a snakebite, and to see the adults, people that children should usually trust in these sort of scenarios, not believe what is being told and treat it like it's not a big deal at all is actually worrying when you remember the kids have nobody else to rely upon except one another. So when Mike disappears, either the kids have to believe they are being told the truth from Uncle Al, or they are left to worry. And it wouldn't be a Goosebumps two-parter if the halfway point wasn't just some scene alluding to some sort of danger. To rate the episode, I give it a 6 out of 10. It's not perfect, but it's still enjoyable. Now then, on to Part 2. We find that Saber wasn't chasing them, but instead it was Larry who questions them as to why they left their tents in the middle of the night, and isn't pleased to learn when he learns that some of them went to the forbidden bunk already. The boys decide that they will take turns watching the door to make sure they are alert of when exactly Saber comes. But morning comes and they're safe, and also find out that Uncle Al is not around this time, and Larry is left in charge. So he decides to have them go out to the lake. But before going to the lake, Billy breaks off to try and get a call out, but Al finds him and tells him that there isn't a real phone on the campsite. Instead, the letters are the communication, and to help prevent homesickness. Before they part, Billy inquires about Roger, only to be told that there was never a Roger. At this point, I'm willing to bet that Nikolai Yezhov was a camper here, with how frequent people get erased. Billy tries to tell Jake and Colin that he was told Roger doesn't exist, but they don't hear him as they are on a canoe like 20 feet away from the docks. For once, Larry actually shows some care to the kids, but they end up capsizing. Billy has to fight Larry just to save them, only for Larry to flee and start making a cover story for himself as he doesn't try to save the drowning children. Billy is unable to find them though as he continuously dives, so unfortunately he has to leave them behind. After some time he makes it to the lodge, only to find that nobody is around. No Larry, no Uncle Al. Just him and this mounting paranoia. Instead of panicking though, he braves a convenient windstorm and uses a bat as protection while coming across all the letters that were supposed to be sent to the parents, leading him to the Forbidden Bunk. The set here looks really good. They did great with depicting a derelict building. In the bunk, he comes across Dawn once more, and she tells him how she has had a similar experience of seeing her friend disappear after some injury. In the bunk are more letters, with some even being much older than their current stay. While inside, they see that the other campers and counselors are now acting more like a military group than just a summer camp, to the point that the boys are even given weapons so they can hunt down Dawn with tranquilizer crossbows. Rather than turn on Dawn, though, he aims at Uncle Al as he's pushed to the brink by all the lies. Upon shooting him, he learns he actually passed some sort of test, and that everyone he knew was in on it. It's not a camp, it's a training facility, and nobody was actually harmed. The reason? To train Billy up for a potential dangerous expedition, and to see how he would do in certain situations that require quick thinking, or when to stand up for himself and others. And when Saber is revealed, we learn it was just an animatronic head that actually looks kinda cool, but pretty lame up close. Where is this expedition, I hear you ask? Well, you know, it's just to a little blue marble called Earth. Yep, we were watching human-like aliens the whole time. It's definitely a twist I wasn't expecting the first time around, and it makes it kinda weird on a second watch through, but not as much as the training aspect to it. Seriously, I was looking at each encounter from the first part and wondering what kind of training program it was, though I actually thought all the boys were being trained and not just Billy. Rewatching it as well helped make me see that some scenes I thought happened were just made up. But even without those scenes, I feel this part 2 kinda drops the ball. It's still good, don't get me wrong, but it feels like more random events just keep popping up instead of a natural flow like the first one had, though the horror of not knowing who or what to trust is done better thanks to this chaos as well. The camera shots when Billy's aiming the crossbow at Uncle Al is just fantastic. Whoever was in charge of that, I hope you either got a sizable bonus or a raise. The letters not being sent was cool in concept, but I felt kind of lacked the oomph of what such a discovery should be like. The same goes for Dawn, because I feel like you could easily forget her existence, as she only had like a few scenes in the early minutes of the first half, and then only comes up near the end. There's too much in-between time without her that she's almost forced in. But I gotta give a lot of credit to Larry's actor for giving me another one of my favorite scenes. That being the drowning. Watching two of your friends disappear underwater before your eyes is scary enough, but then seeing the adult supervisor leave in a panic as he tries to make a cover story for himself definitely doesn't help the situation at all, and the actor did phenomenal. Those two scenes saved this episode for me, as the wrap-up of certain plot beats or characters wasn't as great. So this episode also ends up being a 6 out of 10. It's enjoyable for the most part, and I do recommend watching it if you somehow haven't. But, thanks for watching. Feels nice to do a review without holding myself to a story or character of some kind that isn't an offshoot of my actual normal self. I'll probably do more like this just to get videos out while I'm still working on my projects, like my art for the stories, or just other things I do on the side. Hope you enjoyed the video and review, and I'll see you all later.